New legislation would completely overhaul legislation that was passed in California just a couple of years ago when it comes to how cosmetics are brought to market. Specifically, cruelty-free cosmetics got a big boost, but now all of that hard work is in danger of being undone with federal legislation. And so we're going to dive into that and what it means to you as the consumer here on the Exam Room Podcast. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Today, I am joined by the Physicians Committee's Director of Government Affairs, Mr. Andrew Binovi. Sir, thank you so very much for being here. And we are also joined today by the Chief Ethics Officer for Lush North America, Lush Cosmetics. Brandi Halls is also with us on the program. Thank you both very much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Andrew, I would like to start with you today. Number one, this legislation that was passed in California just a couple of years ago, can you remind our audience what that legislation did before we dive into what's happening today?
Sure. So what that legislation that went into effect in 2019 in California did is it said that in California, you can't sell cosmetics. And, I think when some people think cosmetics, they're thinking makeup, but really it's not just makeup, but it's also shampoos and deodorants, things that almost everyone uses on a daily basis. That in order for these products to be sold in California or imported into California, they needed to be not tested on animals. So it was something that had overwhelming support in the California legislature at the time, something that our organization and other organizations and companies that are selling these products and know how better they are for animals wanted to see happen in California. And to see something that comes along in Congress just a few years later that might undo that work is particularly troubling.
And the thought being that California is such a large state. I mean, the economy of that state alone is larger than many countries out there. So
That's
if you
correct.
have this kind of legislation on the books in that state, it would have a trickle-down effect throughout the other 49 states here in the U.S., correct?
Right. And, we'll focus a lot on California. And sorry to everyone that is listening to this or watching this that isn't from California, but I'll note that there are 8 other states in the United States that also have similar bans that could also be in question as well. So California is the big one, like you said, Chuck, because it's such a large market, because it's such a huge economy. But let's not overlook that there are other states that have this on the books or other states that might be considering it. So what is being offered in Congress as of late wouldn't just affect laws that are on the books now, but would prevent states from passing other laws in the future. So that's why it's particularly troubling.
And so now let's talk about what this federal legislation would do. Specifically, if you want to be technical about it, it was Senate Bill 4348. What would this new legislation do should it get passed, Andrew?
So in Senate Bill 4348, which is a huge bill that has to do with many different things, but the provision that the Physicians Committee is particularly looking at would essentially do 2 things. One, it would prevent states from enforcing laws like the one in California that ban products that have been cosmetic products that have been tested on animals. But the other thing it would do, like I mentioned before, it would prevent states from passing similar laws. So that's troubling from 2 respects. One is because these bans are good for people, they're good for animals, and it's what the people in California and these other states wanted. They went to their state legislatures and said, this is important for us as citizens of this state. We do not want cosmetics to be sold in this state that have been tested on animals. So that's something that would be undone, and that's a problem. An even bigger problem is that it would prevent states from passing future laws going forward, and that's particularly troubling. Anytime Congress says to states, "You can't do this," that should be flagged. But another said when it comes to basically enshrining kind of the status quo where companies can do almost whatever they want to animals to get these products to the market, that's particularly troubling. So that's why the Physicians Committee has been out in front, going to Congress saying this provision in the FDA reauthorization bill, this needs to be stripped, this needs to be changed. We can't let this continue.
Yeah, Brandy, I'm going to come to you in just one second, but Andrew, just to follow up on that, I read it described in one particular article as a wholesale, what this bill is a wholesale overhaul of the FDA's ability to regulate the cosmetics industry with increased enforcement power balanced by few checks. So if this legislation were to pass, and the FDA power, it grows and it continues to go unchecked, how hard would it be to, as my family would say back in the day, put that horse back in the barn and undo what this proposed legislation would do?
I think it would be extremely difficult because right now, there's not a federal ban on cosmetic testing on animals. So absent of that ban, the federal, what would exist at the federal level would be the law of the land in all 50 states. And you're right, Chuck, once Congress does something and it kind of consolidates its, lawmaking ability in here in Washington, it's really hard to undo that. So unless this provision within this bill is changed or removed, we're definitely going to see a lot of problems moving forward when it comes to testing on animals for cosmetics. And one could see how this could bleed into other areas as well. So we definitely want to get out in front of this and make sure Congress isn't taking these steps, because like you said, it would be definitely very, very hard to undo.
Brady, Lush Cosmetics is cruelty-free, has been from day one. What do you know in terms of consumer trends and demand for cruelty-free products?
Yeah, so we've seen through the fact that we're a global brand with over 900 locations, that the demand is there. We've demonstrated that you can be a globally recognized beauty company without harming animals, without testing your product, your finished products, or your ingredients on animals. So we know the demand is there. We know that it's also growing substantially. We have seen, I think that I've seen some projected sales here around the global cosmetics market is expected to grow by almost $4 billion US between 2020 and 2025. So there is, that consumer demand is there without a doubt. We've also seen a significant growth around consumers seeking what we see out there is this clean beauty. And we know through market research that 42% of consumers are associating clean beauty with cruelty-free cosmetics. So there's that connection in the consumer's mind between clean beauty and cruelty-free. And we also know that brands are catching on to this. So we're seeing that ethical claims around non-animal testing and cruelty-free cosmetics have grown from about 28% in 2016 to 41% in 2020. So brands are catching on. They're making claims around cruelty-free cosmetics. And I know today that we have around, I believe, 600 US brands registered, in North America that are kind of registered and certified as cruelty-free. But that there's upwards of 6,000 brands who aren't registered, but are claiming to be cruelty-free as well. So you can see that the demand is there, the brands are catching on to this. And you can see from brands like Lush that we are able to demonstrate that you can, invent, manufacture, and retail an entire range of beautiful products without any animal testing or harming any animals in the process.
Do you find that you need to throw a lot of marketing behind the cruelty-free title, or do you kind of sense organically that for ethical reasons or whatever, that is kind of where consumers are gravitating toward?
Yeah, it certainly is where the consumer is going. It doesn't hurt to get that word out there. So I think for Lush, we are fortunate that our brand was founded and our product inventors have been and still are animal rights activists since day one. So for us, it really has been a way of operating our business for almost 30 years. And so naturally, our brand is associated in that space. But we're constantly trying to tell our story so that we can educate not only the consumer, but our staff staff, our 12,000 staff that we have around the world, as well as, just getting the word out there that, believe it or not, there are cosmetics out there that are still being tested on animals. I think sometimes there's a bit of ignorance around that fact in itself. So, we are still fighting to end animal testing in this space. And we do believe that it's our duty as a retailer who has, these storefronts in high streets across the world, and passionate sales associates who can help spread the word. It's sort of our responsibility, we believe, to continue to tell the story about animals being used in testing for cosmetics, and really ultimately to continue to fight to see it to an end.
Andrew, in terms of this proposed legislation and stricter oversight, how much of this is being done in the name of safety?
It's hard to say, and that's exactly the language that's used in the bill that's so problematic. Is that it gets at that no state may enforce a law that has to do with safety substantiation. And I think one thing that I'm sure we can all agree on here is that this isn't about safety, because there's really nothing about testing on animals that says anything is any safer in humans. That's the whole point that is so problematic here, is that when you're testing on animals, there's not really any guarantee that there is any applicability of what you're finding out when it comes to humans. So these were never needed. These were never needed for safety, and these definitely aren't needed now for safety. So we just don't think that this is really necessary for so many reasons. I wish I could say why does somebody want this in there, and it's hard to say, but what definitely is easy to say is this definitely needs to be stopped.
Do you know how our current legislation, or how this proposal would stack up to other laws around the world in other countries? You're on mute there, Andrew.
Right. There are 40 countries that have passed laws to limit or eliminate the sale of cosmetics that are tested on animals. So that would bring us. We're not even there yet as a nation. We're actually moving away from that. That's why this is so troubling. Like, this is a trend in the wrong direction. We should be moving towards what other countries have been doing, which is eliminating animal testing. Instead, this is a step backwards.
And so, Brandi, let me come back over to you then. So we're talking about kind of an unnecessary step, it sounds like, in terms of forcing animal testing in order to bring a product to market. You have been able to innovate all of these wonderful products without taking that step. Talk to us about your innovation process.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we, fortunately have product inventors who are animal rights activists themselves. And I'm always so pleasantly surprised when I have this conversation with them, asking them what some people may believe to be our limitations around ingredients that we can use in innovating our products. And their answer is often quite poetic, in fact. And really what they come back to is that the basis upon which they start every formula is from a place of using natural, safe, beautiful, plant-derived ingredients. And often say, if you start from that place and you completely ignore animal derivatives or new and novel ingredients that require that testing, that actually it's quite simple to innovate. And there actually removes all of the limitations, and instead just creates this beautiful space where we can innovate and invent products. So our inventors are always coming from a place of, what is the consumer seeking, and how can we make it effective? And then from there, they move into that innovation stage around what ingredients can we use? And we have, such a beautiful array of natural plant-based ingredients from which to choose from. And then we have their expertise, and their 30 years expertise in formulating products, where they're actually looking at combining ingredients and seeing the effects that it's having on the product itself and the effect that it's going to have on the consumer. So yeah, the sort of beauty of our innovation process is in its simplicity, and the fact that when you start from a place of leveraging these natural, plant-based, and safe ingredients, you don't actually run into any of the challenges around limitations regarding our innovation.
And as Andrew mentioned, close to the top of the show here, we're not just talking about powder and concealer and things of that nature. When we're talking about cosmetics, it's a wide array of products. What are some of the Lush products that are on store shelves right now?
Yeah, so we invent, retail, and manufacture what fresh, handmade, and vegetarian bath, body, hair care, and skincare. So those are the categories. But within that, there is such an extensive range that we've been able to demonstrate. You can actually go to market with things as innovative as shower jellies. They're fun, they're effective, they have real effects on the skin and on the body in the shower. They don't harm animals, and they bring a bit of fun to your shower. So we've demonstrated that you can innovate without harming animals, as wide a net as for color cosmetics, right through into things like facial moisturizers, facial cleansers, body scrubs, bath bombs, and right to the extreme of shower jellies.
The I'm sorry, the extreme of shower jellies. That's a phrase I didn't think I would hear ever on this show. Um, Andrew, let me come back to you here and talk a little bit more about this proposed legislation. As
Sure.
it stands right now, what type of support are we seeing for this bill?
Well, this bill, the entire bill, is something that, frankly, Congress has to pass. Not hidden in this bill, but central to this bill, I should say. Sorry, let me clarify that. Central to this bill is a scheme that allows for the FDA to um, reauthorize the use of drugs, and that's really important for folks' health. So it's really troubling that in this important bill that has bipartisan support for a lot of reasons, hidden in this bill is something about cosmetics, and even more troubling, it's something that would basically make it more difficult for states to choose what they want to do when it comes to sales bans on animal tested cosmetics. So the whole bill overall is something that Congress is definitely going to pass, and I think that's why we're so troubled by this provision, is that we don't want this provision just kind of tucked into it to be included as well. For this provision in particular, we're seeing an outgrowing of support from PCRM's members, from other organizations we're talking to. Everyone I've been talking to is saying, like, why is this in the bill? This needs to be pulled. This needs to be changed. So for the fact that when it comes to this provision that would attack state bans on animal tested cosmetics, I haven't heard anyone that's in support of that. We're definitely going to be talking to Congress in the next couple of days and saying this is something that our members definitely don't want to see. We need to make sure that this isn't in the final bill.
And I think that that's kind of the question that the audience right now, the exam roomies, are wondering is like, well, it kind of sounds like we're backed into a corner with this. If this legislation must pass, it is going to pass, but there is this provision in here on cosmetics in there. What can be done? So if somebody is hearing this right now, Andrew, and is like, I need to do something, what is that something?
Right. Well, to use a sports metaphor, the ball is currently in the Senate's court right now. So the Senate is one that is included this provision, and the Senate is the one that is currently debating this bill. So it's important for everyone to contact their senators and let them know that they do not want this ban on states' ability to regulate cosmetics in the final FDA bill. If you don't have your senator's phone number handy, I don't blame you. Not everyone is like me that is calling them constantly. You can go to PCRM's website, pcrm.org, and you'll find an action alert there that folks can go to. They can fill out a form. You'll find their number there. Not after you do that, after you have called your senators, reach out to your friends and family, because I'm sure, like I said, when we're talking about cosmetics, we're talking about shampoo, deodorant, we're talking about makeup, things that literally almost everyone uses. So everyone has a stake in this, and almost everyone watching this has two senators in Congress that they can talk to and tell them, hey, this is something that needs to be stripped, needs to be removed from this bill.
And we'll go ahead and drop a link to that for you to contact your representatives right now. That's in the show description or in the episode notes. And Brandi, a follow-up for you as we kind of wind down here. Since this is being done in the name of safety, I have to ask, from your consumers, how much feedback have you received saying, well, I'm concerned that these products aren't necessarily safe because they have not gone through the animal testing process?
Yeah, I mean, very little. our consumers trust that Lush has done our due diligence around ensuring the safety of our products, and we have. And we've done that, through exploring, testing our ingredients and our products in animal-friendly labs and using animal-friendly test methods that exist out there. Things like in vitro test methods, using human cell cultures and microbiology. These tests exist out there. Additionally, we also lean on human volunteers that work alongside our product inventors. So we have, long guaranteed the safety of our products, and our consumers are certainly not calling that into question in the cruelty-free cosmetic space.
And my final question, this may be one that you're not able to answer off the top of your head, but because you're innovating in unique ways, is that cost prohibitive for Lush?
I think being an ethical business is not always the cheapest way to do business, but it certainly is the only way to do business for us as far as we see it. So we understand that there will be additional costs incurred around innovating, in all of the ways that we do. The transparency right through our supply chain, for example, that makes it more costly to run this ethical business. But for us, it's a cost that can't be ignored, and it's just the cost of doing business in the way that all businesses should actually be operating in society today.
Andrew Binovi, Brandi Halls, and you who is watching this right now, be sure to click that link in the show description or in the episode notes. Make your voice heard. Say, hey, take this provision out of that bill before you go ahead and pass it. Thank you both so very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chuck.
Thank you.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.